I'm still not Corey, and I'm also still talking about Joe Rogan, I guess. So this Unilad article about Joe Rogan apparently calling out Jordan Peterson, so obviously we're talking about that today. But first, go ahead and check out my merch, please. That'd be a real big help. Also, like this video and leave a comment. I don't know, let me know what your favorite podcast is. And also, last thing, I swear, you could join my Patreon or leave a one-time donation at paypal.me/notcorry, okay? Okay, let's start the video. So as I said, the headline of the article is Joe Rogan calls out Jordan Peterson for dead-naming Elliot Page. And hearing that, you think, wow, is Joe Rogan defending Elliot Page? Is he going out to bat for trans people? What is happening? So obviously, let's just watch the video. But first, though, some context. He is talking to Zachary Levi, or Levi, or Levy. I don't know how to pronounce his name. He's the guy from some of the Alvin and the Chipmunks movies, and also a couple Thor movies. And Shazam. He's Shazam. He's the guy that does Shazam. This guy.
I think one of the deepest thinkers that I've ever heard break down like human behavior and I don't know, just an understanding of all that stuff, and I think good wisdom along with it is Jordan Peterson. I think he would be a person that I would trust. I think that guy has a lot of integrity.
I find it interesting when people are so quick to praise Jordan Peterson because he's gone off the deep end. He got banned from Twitter, which they're about to bring up, obviously. He got banned from Twitter for dead-naming Elliot Page, but it goes beyond just dead-naming Elliot Page. We'll get there in a second. It's just odd to me that you can see all of the stuff that Jordan Peterson is doing and has done, like a lot of his anti-trans stuff, that like video that he posted recently where he just goes absolutely nuts about trans people.
Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.
I don't know. I feel like when you do stuff like that, maybe we shouldn't be praising you so often as one of the greatest thinkers with so much integrity. I don't think you should just sweep Jordan Peterson's transphobia under the rug to praise his other ideas and his other work, especially given that some of his other work has been criticized as being sort of a fascist pipeline for young men. I feel like Jordan Peterson is someone where the bad kind of outweighs the good at this point, especially given that right now he's unhinged. He has gone on a campaign against trans people. That is his thing now. That is the hill that he has chosen to die on. So yeah, I think it's kind of odd of Zachary Levi here to be like, oh yeah, Jordan Peterson's great. Like, yeah, he's got his own stuff, but we all do. I don't feel like the transphobia is something you can be like, oh, that's just, everyone's got their troubles, you know? It's just so odd to me to sweep that under the rug so that you can praise him. I'm not saying that you can't praise any of his ideas. I just feel like, given where he is right now, that's something you need to be very, very clear about. Like, hey, I like some of his ideas, but like, what he's doing right now is bad. I don't agree with that. It is very bad and he should not be doing it, you know?
And so I would that would be somebody too. But I also know Jordan has his own things that people have issues with. Like, I get it. Nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect. He's very transphobic. The tweet that he did about Elliot Page was real bad. Let's look at it right now, actually. Remember when pride was a sin and Elliot Page just had his breast removed by a criminal physician? This isn't just dead-naming Elliot Page, which is bad enough in and of itself. This is also saying that he is sinful for being proud of being trans, and also that the person that did the surgeries for him is a criminal. That is going beyond something that you can say, oh, he's got things that people disagree with. He's out and out transphobic. If that was a racist thing he was saying, or if that was a homophobic thing he was saying, or if that was a sexist thing he was saying, I feel like there might be a different viewpoint of this from Zachary Levi. But because it's a transphobic thing, it's very easy to sweep under the rug. I don't know, that makes me like a little bit uncomfortable.
We're not going to find...
He's kicked off Twitter right now because he said something about Page. Yeah. Elliot Page.
This is cool from Joe Rogan to be like, hey, yeah, no, he's banned from Twitter because of this is what he did. That is what you should do. You know, that is what you should do in that situation. If you're going to praise Jordan Peterson's work, you should say, oh yeah, but also bear in mind, this is who Jordan Peterson is. I mean, you know, you could criticize Joe Rogan for dead-naming Elliot Page. It seems like it was a mistake, and he then corrected himself. So we're going pretty good so far, I think.
He's kicked off Twitter right now because he said something about Page.
Yeah.
Elliot Page. Yeah. Called her Page. I think that was the #1 thing.
Yeah.
The dead naming.
Yeah.
What I find so interesting about this is that Joe Rogan understands the concept of dead naming. At least he understands that what Jordan Peterson did was dead naming. He knows what dead naming means. But he's also just done it twice. You could write off the first one as an accident, sure, but then like saying he called her this, which is so strange because not only are you dead naming for the second time, you're also misgendering because you're saying her. Like, it's very odd to me. Like, it's very difficult to understand what Joe Rogan's stance here is. Like, it doesn't necessarily sound like he's calling out Jordan Peterson here. It sounds like he's just kind of stating what has happened with, like, a neutrality about it. I don't think that's a call-out. I think that's just saying Jordan Peterson is banned from Twitter because he dead-named Elliot Page. Like, that's not a call-out. That is just stating a fact. And bear in mind, this isn't a call-out for Joe Rogan. I get it. People make mistakes, or people don't necessarily understand the terminology that they're supposed to use. If he was to say this again after being told, that would be a much bigger problem. But right now, it could be a mistake. I don't know. It's very confusing. Again, because he understands the concept of dead-naming, which would kind of lead you to believe he also understands the concept of misgendering to some degree. But he does both. Like, he's saying Jordan Peterson got banned from Twitter for doing this thing that I am currently doing. It's so weird to me. It's like saying, oh yeah, you know, this guy got banned from Twitter for saying the N-word, and actually saying nigger yourself. It's so strange. Like, oh yeah, what happened to that guy? He got banned from Twitter. What was that for? Oh yeah, he said. It's so weird. It's so weird to me.
And it's sad, man. Because again,
like,
there's a lot of fear and pain on and all the sides of all that too.
That's so disappointing from Zachary Levi, because he's both sidesing this, right? Jordan Peterson, out of nowhere, bear in mind, Elliot Page did not say anything to Jordan Peterson. Elliot Page did not make any contact with Jordan Peterson. Out of nowhere, Jordan Peterson just tweeted about Elliot Page being sinful, about his doctor being a criminal, and also misgendered and dead-named him. Like, it's just, this isn't a both sides issue. This isn't, oh, it's really difficult for Jordan Peterson, it's so sad. He just fully just harassed publicly a celebrity for no reason. That's not something where I would say, oh, it's very sad, there's pain on both sides. Like, sure, there's pain on both sides, but one side is quite clearly the aggressor to the other in this situation. I genuinely feel bad for Elliot Page being drawn into all of this, because bear in mind, with the Jordan Peterson tweet, it wasn't just that one thing from Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson tweeted that, and then got banned from Twitter, and then a bunch of other conservatives started talking about it, and also getting their account suspended until they deleted the tweet. It was this whole thing. It was this snowball sort of situation where Elliot Page is doing nothing, and then suddenly, a bunch of right-wingers and conservatives and people on that kind of end of the political spectrum just start shitting all over him for absolutely no reason other than the fact that he is trans and in the public eye. That's not a thing where it's like, oh, it's sad, there's pain on both sides. That is a group of people just harassing someone for nothing other than existing. Like, no reason to harass Elliot Page here other than the fact that he exists and is trans. That is it. To be clear, I'm not calling Zachary Levi an out-and-out transphobe, but the point is, if you're on the fence in this situation, if you're both sidesing it, you're on the side of the oppressor, which is not trans people. You know, trans people are the ones that are the victims in this situation, and if you don't sort of side on the side of the victim here, then you're siding with the oppressor. Like, that is how this works. You can't just be neutral or remove yourself from a situation like this. Do you know what I mean? You can't, like, both sides racism. You can't both sides sexism. Because if you both sides it, the bigger, more powerful side is gonna win. That is the point here. So, you know, it's disappointing from Zachary Levi, and I hope that he's not actually transphobic. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like ignorance, I think, right? Like, education is the key here. Like, teaching people, like, hey, this is how you refer to trans people. Teaching people, hey, it is not the both sides situation that you think it is. Like, actually look at this. Actually look at what happened here. Because Elliot Page did nothing, and Jordan Peterson got banned from Twitter for his own actions.
Well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions. What's up? What's up?
Elliot Page got harassed just for coming out, and then Jordan Peterson got the consequences of his actions. Like, it's not sad, it's not pain on both sides. The transphobes are the ones that are kind of causing their own pain here. They have a discomfort or a disgust with trans people, and then they express that discomfort or disgust in a way that is harassing trans people, and then they see the consequences for that harassment. That is not sad. That's not a bad thing. That is them receiving the consequences of their actions. Whereas trans people, just going about and existing, are getting harassed. That's not, like, consequences of their actions. That's other people just being assholes to them.
My friend Brian Simpson had a very good thing to say about that. He was like, I come to you for, like, heavy-duty intellectual shit. He goes, not for this.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's like, this is not
totally. Yeah, this is like, yeah, why? Yeah,
getting
Jordan, don't.
about.
Yeah.
That's I think the closest that it gets to a call out here, yeah, that is, I guess, a fair criticism. Yeah, Jordan Peterson should just shut up about trans stuff and then he stick to what he knows. See, this as a criticism is interesting to me because it's not explicitly condemning the transphobia, right? Like, you could conceivably read that as saying, you know, hey, I don't come to you for this. Like, this is not what I want to see for you. I want to see the deep intellectual not you shitting over trans people. That's not necessarily saying that it is bad to shit over trans people. It's just saying, that's not what I come to you for, man. Don't lower yourself to this. Go ahead and do your other stuff. I'm not saying that it's a bad criticism or anything like that. I just find it interesting that it's not like an explicit criticism of transphobia. It's just saying, I don't want to see this from you. This is not what I come to you for. I mean, it's a decent criticism. I just find it interesting.
You don't need to get into all that. I mean, look, it's his life, it's his Twitter, or was his Twitter anyway.
Zachary Levi clearly likes Jordan Peterson, right? Like, he likes the stuff that he's got to say. And I think if you like what someone has to say, you can't just write off the other stuff that they're doing, because Jordan Peterson just harassed some trans person. That's what he did. He publicly harassed some trans person for no reason. He said that they were sinful. He said that the doctor that gave them the consensual and legal surgery was a criminal. This isn't something you can just overlook. This isn't something where it's his Twitter, or it was his Twitter, it's his life, blah, blah, blah. I feel like you take that stance, that very much like, well, it's not my problem stance. Like, you are about as bad as the people that are actually sort of racist and transphobic, like, actively, right? You know, you're as bad as the people that are actively, you know, screaming slurs and shit. If you're sitting by and being like, well, you know, it's your life, you do what you want, because no, you should be opposed to that kind of stuff. You know, you should be opposed to bigotry. You should be opposed to prejudice. You shouldn't want to, I guess, laud people that are that way. You know, you shouldn't want to praise those people or idolize those people. You should say, this is a bad way to be, and your other ideas are great, but this stuff you should cut out. Otherwise, you're just letting everyone else live in a world, like, you know, you're letting yourself and everyone else live in a world where there is bigotry and oppression and prejudice and all of that sort of stuff. And that's not necessarily, like, the best thing. And especially coming from someone like Zachary Levi, like, he is pretty bloody privileged, right? As far as I'm aware, he's straight and he's famous, he's a white man, like, he's clearly got a bit of money, so coming from him, that is just a little bit worrying, right? Like, it doesn't affect him, and so he's like, oh, it's his life, he could do kind of what he wants. That is not a great thing to hear from someone in that position, right? You don't really want to be hearing that people with that much privilege, with that much sort of power and wealth and all that stuff, are apathetic towards bigotry and prejudice because it doesn't affect them. That's the vibe that I'm getting here, and it's not a great one. I feel like it should be a case of, if someone is transphobic, that is bad. And you say that's bad. I feel like people are scared to say, this is bad. You should be perfectly fine saying this is bad. You know, I could say, hey, I liked J.K. Rowling's books, but what she's doing now is bad. Like, it's very easy. It's very easy to say, hey, I like some aspect of what this person does, but they are bad. Like, I liked Max Landis's films. I like the stuff that he wrote. I do not like the stuff that he did. That is, like, it's very easy to say that. Like, it's not a hard thing. You can absolutely condemn someone's actions or thoughts or whatever whilst enjoying some aspect of something they've created. Like, that is perfectly doable and perfectly fine. I don't understand this sort of like, oh, it's his life, blah, 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 because you're just writing off transphobia, which is not cool. You're writing off, even if you look past the transphobia, you're writing off just publicly harassing a stranger online for no reason. It's not cool. It's a very weird place to be in.
But that thing is like, that transgender thing riles people up, man.
True.
That is one of the ones that riles people up. Like, everybody's in favor of everybody doing whatever they want to do as long as it doesn't hurt anybody until it gets to gender. And then people start getting weird. They start thinking it's a mistake. They start thinking, why are you doing that? They start thinking all kinds of things.
Yeah, you know, like, it's pretty good. It's pretty good from Joe Rogan, right? Like, I can't super fault that. Yeah, people do get crazy weird when it comes to gender. Like, oh, you could do what you want, but the gender thing is a mistake. That's a pretty spot on look at how people kind of react to all of this. And, I mean, I guess if you look at it as a whole, it is kind of a criticism of Jordan Peterson. It's not really fully explicit. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not saying what Jordan Peterson said was bad for XYZ reason. I'm not saying that I expect that. I'm just saying that as far as criticisms go, it's not like an outright condemnation specifically of Jordan Peterson and his actions. You know, like, it's not a full-on call-out. It's a little bit more subtle, which is still good. That's still fine. It's a good stance to have, but coming away from this, it's kind of difficult to discern where Joe Rogan stands on this, right? Because at the start, he's dead-naming Elliot Page, and he's misgendering Elliot Page, potentially accidentally, but then at the end he's like, yeah, people are kind of crazy when it comes to gender stuff, which is true. It's interesting to me as well, because Joe Rogan has platformed people with those views that are kind of crazy about gender. He's platformed just out-and-out TERFs that are spreading misinformation and lies. Like, he amplified that misinformation. Like, that is what he has done. That is the impact that he's had. I don't think this one clip can necessarily outweigh his other actions and other things like that. You know, like, as I've said, platforming TERFs and allowing them to spread misinformation kind of uncritically, like, that is a problem, and you can't go out and say Joe Rogan is super pro-trans when he's also done that. And I'm not saying that this is bad. This is a very good thing. Like, that has an impact on people, you know? Like, what Joe Rogan says impacts people. People listen to and trust Joe Rogan whether he tells them to or not. That is just what happens when you have one of the biggest podcasts in the world. So it's really interesting to me that he said this, and it's a net positive, you know? It's good that he said something that was, I guess, to an extent, pro-trans. Like, that is pretty cool. But yeah, like, I wouldn't go out and say Jordan Peterson was called out by Joe Rogan, blah, 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 because it kind of gives the wrong view of it. It wasn't an out-and-out, like, super pro-trans message. It was kind of just a, let people do what they want, and it's kind of crazy how crazy some people get about this, but like, there wasn't a, you really should not be doing this, that's a bad thing to do. It was, I don't come to you for this, and people kind of go crazy about this. It was lukewarm. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm not trying to be, like, overly critical. I'm just trying to be, like, realistic, right? Like, it was a criticism. It was kind of good. It wasn't amazing. It could be a lot better. So Joe Rogan, is he transphobic? Is he not? He still could be, but regardless, the message that he's given out here is pretty decent. Like, it's decent, okay? Like, it's a mixed bag, let's say, okay? Bear in mind, that's just talking about this one specific situation. If you take into account other things that Joe Rogan has said and done, like, he has had a sort of negative net impact on trans people, I think. Just generally speaking, with his platform and with his podcast, he's not necessarily had the most positive impact on trans people in general. But yeah, Joe Rogan has done transphobic stuff in the past, and I guess this is just kind of a step in a slightly better direction. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It actually helps a lot. And also comment down below. Again, let me know, I don't know, your favorite podcast or whatever, if that's what the question that I asked at the start. I don't remember. You see these people scrolling past here? These are my patrons. You can join them if you like. You could get monthly bonus videos, or if you want to leave just a one-time donation, you can head to paypal.me/notcorry. And also, I need to thank some of my patrons. So thank you to Maxwell17, Brad the Music, Duck Danito, and Ataraxia25. Goodbye.